When historians look back 30 years from now at the year 2020 and 2021 and how governments handled the pandemic, I can't think of a better symbol than the mask.
About my stuff medically. You don't have to tell me any specifics about your medical history. But if I tell you that I have a medical problem, that's telling you something specific.
The dude's telling dude to get out of there. We're going to tell him.
Breathing problem. My doctor would not let me wear a mask. So anyone harassing me to wear a mask, you guys are violating federal law. You get that? Get that on camera.
What to do?
Are you going to allow the government to tell you you have to wear a mask?
Man's face. No, I will. By your very blind, ignorant, you don't have the ability to even come up with your own ideas.
Hey guys, welcome. My name is James, and welcome to This Beautiful Crazy Life. This is a channel where we explore politics, philosophy, media, current events, and everything in between as I try to not run out of breath from a Christian perspective. And I want to talk about one of the most controversial regulations, suggestions ever in recent American memory, and this is this thing here, the mask. This mask here is the perfect representation of the cultural divide of the United States and the cultural and political divide of the American church, because this thing here is literally a political statement. The fact that I'm wearing this is probably triggering some people right now that I would wear a mask when there's literally no one else in this room. Now you might be asking yourself, why am I wearing this mask right now to record this video? Clickbait for later. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I like the aesthetic of wearing a mask while I talk about mask. It's kind of funny. And actually a little hard, but I'm gonna keep doing it. You know, there was this idea I had recently because this summer I was going to a lot of different churches to find a new church home. And I was kind of interested in seeing how churches responded to this whole idea of the mask, right? Because some churches had very strict COVID procedures, while other churches, it was a complete free-for-all, while other churches actually discouraged mask wearing. I literally went to a church and the pastor's like, you can wear this if you want, but I'm pretty sure masks don't work, and I'm pretty sure I had COVID, and we'll never close because the Constitution. And literally everyone got up and cheered. It was pretty wild. Well, I went to another church and they had very strict regulations where you couldn't sit with anyone else in your household. You couldn't sit with anyone else outside of your household. You had to have a mask on. They were very strict on not people coming in contact with each other. Two different churches, both actually Baptist churches, so they probably had very similar theology, but their idea of what it meant to protect and love people was extremely different. For some people, especially on the more conservative end, politically, this mask is anti-tyrannical. It's extremely tyrannical, authoritarianism, not sure if it works, skeptical of the science come out since the CDC said at one point you can have masks, and another point said that you need masks, whatever it was, right? That they felt like there was this flip-flop, and that this is about controlling people, and that these government regulations, from the business closures to, who you can be in contact with, to, everything in between, whether it's vaccines and all that stuff, this mask is the representation of what people feel like is an overpowered government. While for other people, this is a public health choice to protect people, where the mask helps it from not spreading it more if you already have it, to reduce the sort of, the germ spreading, right? And this is a way to protect people. And recently in my city, the mask mandate ended just a couple days ago. And some people were very excited. Other people were pretty whatever. And some people were skeptical and maybe felt why are we ending it yet when only 40 something percent of our city is actually vaccinated. And so churches, I'm curious to see how churches in my town respond to this. Were churches who are more strict on COVID, will they be relaxing the mask standards? Or those who are just kind of following the government regulation where please come in with masks, and then a lot of them weren't even kicking people out, they didn't have masks? Would that be their whole deal? And for churches who didn't wear masks, is this where they just go, hey, let's all breathe on each other party? I don't know, maybe. I'm joking there. I hope no one does that. That would be gross. I think the big question for me is this: what does it mean to love your neighbor? Right? I mean, this is really where it comes down to, because I think kind of both sides really do sort of make a caricature of everyone else. Like, you hear on one side, if you wear a mask, you're just living in fear and you don't trust God. And on the other side, if you don't wear a mask, right, it's because you want to kill everyone, and the only thing you care about is your freedom instead of the public good. And I think both of those are exaggeration of what the other side actually believes. And I want to talk about a Christian perspective, because both have used this argument as, hey, we need to love our neighbor. And for some people, loving your neighbor means the church never needs to close for no reason ever, that masks encourage people to not talk to each other, and that we shouldn't give the government like any of this power, because that's not real love, right? And then people also are kind of incorporating the way governments operated with the business community and how that all went down. And that, hey, any restrictions is basically not loving people, because all it's going to lead to is more depression, because job loss and lack of social community and all that stuff there. On the other side, people are like, hey, this pandemic is a real thing, right? And that wearing a mask helps people protect elderly and vulnerable, and it helps slow down the spread for the hospitals won't get overwhelmed. And that's how you love people. And that, hey, you know what? Let's give up a little bit of our freedom right now with, maybe restricted seating at restaurants, and let's just use the power of the government to, give people some money to help them out. That's loving people. Is loving people just saying, hey, you get to work? Or is loving people say, hey, don't work right now, here's some money? Which one is actually loving people? Which one is actually better? Is, both of these have huge ramifications, right? Because a lot of people have died from COVID and got sick. That leads to problems. And the other side, these business closures have led to people losing their jobs. And we know that loneliness has been on the rise. And according to numbers I read, but I don't really know how accurate these numbers are, things like suicide and depression are up, which they were already high to begin with. So I guess this is great, because now the American church is really actually like taking mental health seriously. But I guess it took a pandemic. That's a whole nother conversation. But it's just interesting to me how this mask is a reflection of what you value and what it means to love your neighbor. Now, if you want to know what my position is, well, the way I think it is to love your neighbor is to... Now, the fact is, I really don't know what the correct answer is. I'm somewhat, I guess, in the middle, right? I think masks do work. I wear them in public. And I also think that the government has overreached in a lot of areas. And I think that we should have probably treaded a lot lighter and maybe not as quickly, and really should have let the science pan out. Because some of the rules and regulations that were made by governments, in hindsight, didn't make sense and led to a recession. I think the pandemic would have led to a recession regardless, but this way that government operated in this way made it way worse. And this has real implications for people and their mental health. And I think when we just go and characterize the other side as not caring because they don't believe in what you believe, and everyone's shaming each other for wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, I think we need to think better of a theology that actually makes sense on what it means to protect people and how government should be used. And I have not found any popular pastor who has really took a deep dive into this. It's either you want to protect people or you don't. And that's literally that's both sides in what they're arguing. And that's not good. And the reason we have a chance and need to address this is because there's going to be another pandemic, and the next one might be worse. And because people have such a mistrust of government on either way, I think if there's one that's more deadly, you're going to see a lot more people die. And that would be horrifying and would not be loving to anyone. So, what do you guys think we should do here? How should we see this? What does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? Let me know in the comments. Share this video and like. And guys, I don't know why. Usually I don't have a super hard time breathing this mask. I think it's because I'm actually really full and kind of bloated, if I'm honest. Just in case you want to know. So it's feeling terrible. Anyway, catch you guys later.